rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And that's right, Music Man, it is showtime. Showtime right here on American Perspective. Oh, goodness. First, I gotta do a couple of things first. First of all, shout out to 3 Chevy. Thank you very much for the purchase of one of my logoed t-shirts. It has the American Perspective logo on it. Fantastic purchase. Thank you very much. And, of course, it supports the show as well. So I do appreciate that. If you are interested in checking out what I have, you can head on over to here it is right here. store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online is where you can go. And no, that isn't my headliner support tonight. I just wanted to let people know that it's there. I don't push it very often because, and I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know why. I just don't do it. I don't know why, because, and I probably should, because realistically, as much as I enjoy things like getting the Rumble rants and those kinds of things, I want you guys to get something for your money. And that's part of the reason why I even have the store, although I haven't really done a stellar job of, like, you know, coming out with new products or whatever. I need to start working on that. Because I've had some great ideas for some more t-shirts and sweatshirts and stuff, but I haven't like sat down and actually done anything with them yet. So hopefully I'm going to do that pretty soon. All right, let's see. There was one other thing that I wanted to mention. Oh yes, we saved you a spot. Okay, we saved you a spot, which is the Hannah and her mom, Barbie, their podcast. They actually just followed me on Facebook. The podcast did. I don't know why, in terms of, I don't know why they didn't already. But apparently I just got the notification that they just followed me. You should check out their podcast. They go through a bunch of different things. It's all kind of in good fun. It's a mother-daughter podcast, and they talk, and sometimes they have guests on, and they talk about all kinds of stuff. So, yeah. So Hannah and Barbie are the ones that's Hannah and her mother Barbie on We Saved You a Spot, and she started that, I don't know, maybe about a year and a half ago or something like that. So there was that as well. Also too, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm closing in on my 500th episode. And if I count the calendar, I'm actually going to make it, to 500 before the end of this year. Now, the reason why I say that is because I do have a special coming up Saturday. We have a gift giving special coming up on Saturday. So yeah, so there's that. Plus we have, you know, Christmas and Christmas Eve and Christmas, which I will be taking off, for this. So, you know, again, I'm coming up to 500, man. Let me tell you, when I started this thing, I would not have imagined that I would have hit. In fact, I wasn't even sure that I was going to even hit 500, but it's all due to you guys. It's all due to you, because you guys keep coming back. You keep my energy up. You keep me rocking and rolling, and that's kind of what we've got going on. So I have to thank you. I have to, give you guys applause for that. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to try and figure out something to do for the 500th episode, for certain. Coming up by the end of this month. I think actually it ends on December 30th if my count is correct, but I could be wrong. Anyway, all right, let's get on to tonight's program. We'll start off, of course, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the wonderful, always there, one of the very first Whiskey Warrior P1s that were out there, and that is the wonderful Buddy Weiser. Buddy Weiser will be leading us tonight. Oh, 3 Chevy figures. 3 Chevy says, we keep coming back because we are gluttons for punishment. Apparently, I am too. So there you go. We're all just, we're in one big Neanderthal, deplorable, non-deprogrammed, whatever else it is that you say, batch right here on this program. But anyway, let's get on to the rest. So please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and make sure you put your hand over your heart and join in with Buddy Weiser in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
All right. Thank you for that, buddy. I do appreciate that. Wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the Pledge of Allegiance in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email. Send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. One other note I just noticed, Mama 5 Kitties, I just saw you in the chat. I need you to check your email, please. Okay. So, let's see. Oh, yes, I cannot forget tonight is, of course...
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
It is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And tonight, Bonnie is going to be very happy with me. Tonight I am drinking the Four Roses single barrel. They actually started selling this at our local Costco. So my wife picked up another bottle for me, so I actually have 2 on the shelf now. This one and one other. So Mrs. Whiskey likes to keep me in whiskey. Well, wait a minute. How would that work? Mrs. Whiskey likes to keep whiskey in whiskey. Really? Yeah, I don't know. But, of course, I am drinking it out of, since this is Wednesday, this is the True Grit Roots Network glass right here with stones. And according to Yoda, at least this is what 3 Chevy says, according to Yoda, drink with whiskey you will, stones you must have. Anyway, so there we go. Good stuff right there. Good stuff right there. All right, and let's talk about, since it is TGRN night, let's talk about TGRN. TGRN.net, that is our home on the web where you can find us. You can listen to us directly through the browser, or you can download our app from both the iOS and the App Store, Google Play, I should say, because I think iOS and the App Store are the same. But anyway, you can download them for both versions, all right? And also, too, if you already have the app of, sorry, Becky, don't mean to slow you down there. If you already have the Odyssey, that's AUDACY, the iHeart app, or the Live 365 app, you can find us in their catalog of digital radio stations, and you can listen to us there. Don't forget that coming in January 2025, a slight programming change. We're swapping over from all blues 24/7 on TGRN Blues over to blues and rock. That is coming, and it's also being headlined by a fantastic blues rock icon to be announced soon. But that that channel change will happen coming up in January of 2025. But for right now, why don't you check out a couple of our daily shows? We have the Morning Blues, which starts off at 6 a.m. weekdays, Monday through Friday, which is the Morning Blues Cafe. And that way you can kind of ease your way into your workday. Also, too, don't forget we have the Blue Plate Special, where we serve up R&B cuts and other things straight from our blues kitchen. It is covered by a couple of our on-air personalities, and that is fantastic. That comes up at noon Central Time in the Americas. So again, go to the Morning Blues Cafe at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. That's Central Time. Or the Blue Plate Special at noon for a hour-long specialized programming for you during that hour from noon till 1. That's Monday through Friday, right here on TGRN Blues, and that is part of the True Grit Roots Network and TGRN.net, based out of Austin, Texas. Boy, I ad-libbed that one, and I gotta laugh at myself sometimes whenever I do those things. All right. So let's get things kicked off here. Oh, by the way, before I get too far into it, I do not have a pet of the week tonight because I just don't. I couldn't find one that might have been held over from a while. So get those in. Send those to fans at TGRN. Fans at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And get those in as soon as you can so we can have it Wednesday nights, because that's a fan favorite, and I don't like disappointing my fans. I really don't. All right. So our final, absolute final race has been called. Here we are. We're into freaking this is the first full week in December, or the first full week in December. They finally got done with the flipping counting in California. And unfortunately, the Democrats have been taking credit for this, but apparently the Democrat flipped the seat. So, based on this in Just the News, final House race called, Democrat wins, GOP has a 220 to 215 seat majority. So, yeah. So there we go. The final House race was called. This was last night. California GOP Representative John Duarte, however you want to pronounce it, lost to Democratic challenger Adam Gray. And by the way, I heard that it was only by less than 200 votes, something like 180 something votes. Now, it's kind of interesting, and not that I'm saying anything about this, because, let's be honest, there's no real proof of this as of yet. But here's the thing. This long-term counting, every single count that took forever went to the Democrats for the most part. And, coming from a state where we had 3 different recounts, and they kept recounting. Yeah, a long time ago. You've heard the story before, but yeah, this has got to get cleaned up. This really does. This really has to get cleaned up. But anyway, Gray won the seat of the state's 13th congressional district. in a rematch of his 2022 contest with Duarte, according to the Associated Press. House Speaker Mike Johnson will begin the next congressional session starting in January with what is considered to be one of the narrowest of majorities. So even though the Louisiana Republican has a 5-seat majority, several of those seats are going to be vacant. The reason why is because, of course, they pulled from the House. So the one formerly occupied by Matt Gaetz and a couple of others until special elections can get figured out. So yeah, so now we have, we will end up with 220 to 215, but that's not what we're going to start with, which really kind of sucks. Okay. So yeah, that's, took them this long to figure that out. I can't even imagine. All right, really quick break. Hi, Landon. There we go. All right. So, all right. Okay, just so you people can really understand what's going on here. My chat, apparently I have a voice that is soothing to animals for some reason. And I'll be honest with you, this is kind of a divergent thing. Okay, we're gonna go off the rails here real quick. But I've always had a bit of a knack when it comes to animals. I wouldn't say I'm like any kind of an animal whisperer in any way, shape, or form, but animals have always been friendly to me throughout my entire life. For the most part, the only time that I've ever been hurt by an animal outside of stupid mistakes for me is the fact that I got bit by a little Chihuahua rat. And yes, I am going to say it's a rat because anything under 30 pounds is not a dog. But this little Chihuahua decided to bite my pinky for whatever reason. And it was yapping at my ankles at the time. So anyway, the point being here is that I've been watching the chat over the course of the last few weeks. And I've noticed that apparently several people with animals are all saying that when I come on and I start talking, the animals gradually gravitate toward my voice and they all just kind of like hang out, whether it's next to the television or next to them on the couch or something along those lines. And apparently I just pissed off Tommy about the whole rat thing. With Chihuahuas. Oh, sorry. I guess I can't please everybody all the time. But apparently the animals have been like collecting in around whenever they hear my voice for some strange reason. It would be interesting to find some scientific way to sort of prove this out. But yeah, so that's kind of what the deal is. And Landon is one of the dogs that is around, and he comes in and I guess lays down in front of the TV while one of my fans is watching. And so every once in a while I do have to like say, hi, Landon, and tell him who's a good boy. So if you ever hear me say that, that's part of the reason why. Anyway. And by the way, this actually extends even to my own animals because, they all kind of have gradually like gravitated toward me as the leader of whatever the pack is. So there you go. Anyway. All right. Back to the show. So Biden apparently has left his mark. He has left his mark on the White House and on our government, potentially indelibly forever, if things like what Trump wants to do are enacted. So you're kind of wondering, what the hell could he be, what could he be doing in this? Well, here it is. And this is really pretty sad. This in the Washington Examiner. Biden did it. He hit the record of the most regulation-filled Federal Register ever at 96,088 pages. So apparently there's 7 weeks to go in his administration before he turns the keys over to President-elect Donald Trump. But he's made history in the only way that Washington swamp could celebrate. For the first time ever, the Federal Register, which publishes all of the government regulations and administration's proposals, smashed through the record held by former President Barack Obama to set a new level that is sure to grow higher as the Biden team moves to lock in its liberal agenda. I mean, really? I no offense, but I mean, being a strict constitutionalist like myself, having an overbearing and overarching federal government like this just goes really against the grain. It goes against my grain. It should go against the grain of every single freaking American out there. And I'm not talking about the anti-American leftist morons. I'm talking about Americans. Now, what's even amazing out of this is two things, and Jarhead actually points it out here, as far as it as it being Barry's third term anyway, meaning Barack Obama's third term. But that's the thing, is Barack Obama had 2 terms. Biden has done it in just 1. You want to talk about overbearing and overarching governments? Holy freaking crap, folks. I mean, seriously, executive orders much, folks? I mean, keep in mind, Barry, he decided to say that he, as long as he had a phone and a pen, he could legislate, or whatever it was that he said that he was doing for, you know, for many, many years. But, wow, I just can't, I can't even imagine this. So, he, I can't even imagine. Obama had a record of 95,894 pages that held for 6 years. Okay. And now Biden is likely to cross the 100,000 page mark before Inauguration Day. Because don't forget, he's looking to add stuff there to try and cement what is considered, at least in his mind, to be his legacy, with all of the DEI and protecting the people, you know, all of the bureaucrats, the bureaucracy, the deep state folks that are in the offices. I mean, seriously. I can't imagine how the executive branch would go through, like, I don't recall, but I think if I recall correctly, George Washington only had like 1 executive order. I don't even think that I honestly, I don't think the first 10 presidents combined had a total of more than 10 executive orders in the beginning. I'd have to validate that, but man, they definitely are in the, you know, low double digits, not up to almost 6 digits in this. I mean, what a freaking nightmare. This is just and this is exactly why Donald Trump was elected, folks. You think he was elected, you know, because of all of the lawfare? No, he promised to clean up the bureaucracy. And this is part of the reason why all of his nominations are freaking, you know, they're scaring the left completely. You know, with Pete Hegseth, who's getting charges levied against him that he, you know, all kinds of stuff being pulled out of his background. None of it has any water to it. But the thing about it, all of this is that we're trying to shrink government, not grow government. Okay? That's the problem. We're trying to shrink government. This thing shouldn't be 100,000 pages. It should be less than that. It should be much less than that. We got, you know, Donald Trump and his band of merry misfits, when they get into office, they got a lot of work. ahead of them. A lot of freaking work ahead of them. I mean, I can't even imagine what this is. Yeah, so Clyde Wayne Cruz, who is the Fred L. Smith Fellow in Regulatory Studies at the Competitive Enterprise Institute and an expert in what's known as the Federal Register, said, with 4 weeks remaining, the daily depository of proposed and final rules and regulations is poised to exceed 100,000 pages. Can you believe that? 6 frickin' digits in regulations and rules. I can't even, I can't. I mean, this is the problem, people. This exact thing right here is the problem, because we have gotten away from this right here, the Constitution of the United States, and made it to where now apparently everybody is just accepting the fact that legislations and orders by executive fiat are allowed. I mean, this is just nuts. Oh, and by the way, too, Joe Biden's not going to leave without giving his buddy, that's right, his buddy Zelensky, more money before he takes off. Really? I mean, right here, $725 million in munitions. Do you realize that Joe Biden has given away $1.725 billion in as many as 2 days already? He promised Angola $1 billion for whatever programs that he wanted over there. But here, $725 million in munitions for Ukraine and Zelensky. And it's all courtesy of you, the American taxpayers. That's right, you, the American taxpayers. It's all because of the American taxpayers. It's bad. On Monday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced another $725 million in aid to Ukraine, including counter-drone systems, more missiles for the MLRS and HMARS rocket systems, and anti-personnel landmines. The statement read, the U.S. is preparing to send Ukraine an additional $725 million in military assistance, including counter-drone systems and munitions for its high-mobility artillery rocket system, which could indicate more of the longer-range missiles are headed toward the battlefield. Side note, that's those longer-range missiles went, into Russia, of course. Back to his statement, it is unclear whether the munitions for the HIMARS, whatever it is, are the coveted ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, but Ukraine has been pressing for more of the longer-range missiles to strike additional targets inside Russia. The package announced Monday by the State Department also includes more of the anti-personnel landmines that Ukraine is counting on to slow Russian and North Korean ground forces in the Russia's Kursk region. Okay, now keep in mind, Zelensky has actually even stated as much that chances are they're not going to gain back any or very, very small amounts of the ground that Russia has taken. He's already made that comment. Okay. So the President Trump, of course, President-elect Trump, I should say, has sworn to bring a negotiated end to the Russia-Ukraine war as swiftly as possible. And there is widespread speculation about what the new Trump administration will mean for Ukraine, as the incoming president has promised to end the conflict. In a major shift, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signaled on Friday that an offer of NATO membership to territory under Kiev's control could end the hot stage of the war. Now, NATO has generally declined to admit new member states who are engaged in ongoing conflicts. That's sensible. Admission of Ukraine, for example, into NATO would immediately place all of NATO at war with Russia by treaty. And that's not something that either side of the conflict should care to contemplate. So, also, by the way, on Monday, President Biden issued a memorandum authorizing Antony Blinken to disperse up to $63 million in assistance to Ukraine without regard to any provision of law. It's unclear whether this is in addition to the $729 million already announced. The delegation of authority was emailed in a press release from the White House press office and states, in part, by the authority vested in me as president and by the Constitution, blah, blah, blah. I hereby delegate to the Secretary of State the authority under section so on and so forth of the FAA to determine whether it is important to the security interests of the United States to furnish up to $63 million in assistance to Ukraine without any regard to any provision of law, purview, blah, blah, blah. So here we go. More money pouring out of the American coffers. Yeah, you thought $36 trillion was amazing. Just wait until all of this deficit crap gets added to the debt. Oh, my gosh. You know, yeah. We can't afford this. We just can't. We cannot afford this entire situation. And, yeah, I just, January 20th cannot come fast enough. Let's just put it that way. It just can't. And I know Biden does not hold the purse strings according to the Constitution. You are correct. He does not. You know, but again, we're talking about the Democrats here. They don't give a crap about the Constitution. They don't care. Not to mention the fact that Tommy brings this up about no accountability. Well, I mean, there was the audit. I mean, can you just imagine somebody going in and auditing all the money that we sent over to Ukraine? Yeah. It's just crazy. And Buddy Weiser follows up and says, the House has already said no more money. Well, I would tend to agree with him. Oh, my gosh. I just can't. I cannot do this. We are so, we are so, ingrained with all of this. Oh, let me just see what this is all about. Hold on. Oh, all right. I'll throw that in there. Sounds good. Buddy may have just saved my ass with the pet of the week stuff. So there we go. That's what we're doing. All right. So anyway, let's get back to the show here. It's very rare that I can actually grab stuff that quickly, but we'll go ahead and see what I come up with here. All right. So one of the biggest cases that I think of the end of the year here. Now, obviously, this is something that's actually very near and dear to my heart. I mean, I have kids. Granted, both of them are now adults. All right. But I have kids. And to think that you as an individual would, as a parent, would willingly take your child and essentially mutilate them on the whim for a, knowing that 70% or more of children who have or who are early diagnosed with like gender dysphoria or, think that they're the other gender or whatever, to think, knowing that there is a almost 3/4 or more. I cited 70% because that's the number that came to my head, but I know that it's a very large percentage that grow out of thinking that they are of the opposite gender. Knowing this, why any parent would advocate for the idea of doing things like puberty blockers, which have disastrous side effects in certain cases, and you know, going in for gender reassignment surgery before they're even 18 years old. I just can't. I can't even imagine being a parent. I can't even imagine what that would essentially get into. Okay. And the fact that this is even questionable and has gone all the way to the Supreme Court is even more amazing than anything else I think that I've ever seen. Now, you know, you're kind of sitting there and wondering what the heck, if you're not in the know, you're probably sitting there and going, what the hell is he talking about? Well, here it is. So Tennessee passed a law, all right, that basically stated that they were going to ban gender reassignment surgeries for transgender adolescents. Okay. Now, keep in mind, there's 24 states that have measures on the books that are similar to what Tennessee's is. But here's the thing, is that Tennessee, you know, banned it outright, and now this case has gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. And here's the thing, is that the case, or the Tennessee law, is essentially where it's blocking things like puberty blockers, hormone therapy for minors that are experiencing this idea of gender dysphoria. Okay. Now, the first thing that the justices at the Supreme Court have to kind of figure out is, first of all, whether or not the state has a constitutional ability to regulate medical interventions for transgender youth. Okay? And look, as I have told you on this program, okay, as I've told you on this program, the Constitution itself does not state anywhere with regards to any kind of medical necessity, medical coverage, anything with regards to medicine or health care or any of that being a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. So this is my argument, and has been my argument for a lot of things, such as the the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, the whole idea of Roe v. Wade. Again, I can say that with certainty, you could essentially make an argument for the military being covered by the federal government in terms of their health care. But the reality of it is that if it's not in the Constitution per the 10th Amendment, nor specifically prohibited by it to the states, it belongs to the states and to the people. And so realistically, this kind of mandate is basically on a case-by-case or state-by-state basis. Now, the arguments that are being made, by the way, has to deal with the 14th Amendment, which is exactly the same tact that they took originally with the Roe v. Wade scenario. All right? So the case itself coming up into the Supreme Court is also following along with the idea that President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to restrict these medical treatments, okay, for transgender minors, and to bar transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. By the way, speaking about that, many teams are now like forfeiting to other teams that have transgenders on their rosters. So the pushback on this entire situation is really, really becoming a sort of what I would consider almost a mainstream type of thing. And the Biden administration itself is going to argue on Wednesday that the Supreme Court should invalidate Tennessee's law. The incoming Trump administration could reverse that government's position once he's in power next year. Now, here's the thing. Dr. Susan Lacey, who is a Memphis-based physician who challenged Tennessee's law alongside 3 families, said that it's very difficult for these teenagers who already face a difficult scenario when there's this institutional government rejection of who they are. That's very difficult to be told. Either you don't know who you are, being told that you're wrong, or you don't know what you're talking about. Your parents are trying to manipulate you, and all kinds of rhetoric that is really difficult for these kids. Now, again, keep in mind, she has not stated, or as far as I know, has not even accepted the fact that these kids, okay, are going to likely, and again, this is a large margin. This isn't like a 50-50 split. This isn't like a, it's more a 30-70. 70% or greater chance that by the time they hit their 18 years old, they're going to go, you know what? I actually am a girl. And there are several detransitioners who actually were there, by the way, who have all pointed out that, hey, look, one in particular, she was a girl. She turned herself into a boy. She had a mastectomy, and at an early age, and now she knows that she's a girl, and she's like, she took testosterone pills, I believe, and if I recall correctly, and so yeah, they cannot imagine, this idea that somebody won't try to help them. So anyway, the SB 1, which is the Republicans-led legislature's approval on its ban on certain medical treatments for minors, happened in March of 2023. Puberty blockers, hormone therapy have been used to treat gender dysphoria for decades, but in the past 3 years, several legislatures, Republican-controlled, have adopted measures restricting access to these treatments for minors. Now, keep in mind, too, the science of this in terms of long-term effects is still being developed, because the use of these drugs on children is very recent. And so we honestly don't know. In a way, it's sort of like the COVID vaccine. We don't know the long-term effects because it hasn't been enacted for a very long time yet. The longitudinal data is not there. Okay? And so, anyway, Tennessee law prohibits the healthcare providers from administering any of these blockers, hormones, if they're meant to enable a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex. So, anyway, the point is that the Biden administration, of course, is targeting Tennessee's ban, and it's basing it, believe it or not, on the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection and the civil rights situation. So this is going to kind of be, well, let me just break it down to you just in this particular sense, and then I'll move on. The oral arguments occurred today. And those oral arguments indicate that there is a probability that that the Supreme Court is either going to punt or they're going to uphold Tennessee's ban at this point. Okay. Now, the state officials pointed out in a filing with the Supreme Court that while the government is free to favor its transition first, ask questions later approach, The Constitution does not bind Tennessee to that same choice. They also say that they are trying to protect children from the life-altering risks of gender-affirming care, which they say is risky and unproven. And this is essentially true. Because of the fact that, again, like I said, those longitudinal studies have not been done yet. We've just now started to change the, I mean, it really has been very recent that they've started to give these to kids. Okay. So, anyway, we're going to have to see what's going on. The ACLU, of course, is representing the families who challenged the Tennessee law. And Chase Strangio, who is a lawyer with the group, will make the history as being, well, she did, or he did, I should say, whatever it is, the first openly transgender person to argue before the Supreme Court when they participated in the oral arguments today. So we're just going to have to watch what happens here. So the way, and the reason why we got here, by the way, is the first court that heard the case ruled that the law discriminates against the basis of sex and targets transgender people. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit reversed that decision, allowed the law to take effect, and of course we're bringing it all the way up to the Supreme Court now. So this is a big one. I mean, this really is a big one for the most part. I mean, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of them that are out there, but this one's pretty large, and it's going to be interesting to see what the heck is going on with this one. And we're just going to have to watch. Obviously, the opinion won't be released until probably after Christmas for that. So anyway. All right. Well, that is not the only pretty big case that's going on here. This next case, and before I go on, though, I am going to talk to you a little bit about my store. This next case, though, does have to deal with a state case. But let's go ahead and talk about the store really quickly. Like I said, I don't push this very much, but I would appreciate it if you would go and take a look at store.americanperspective.online. That's store.americanperspective.online. And you can order things directly there. I've got t-shirts, sweatshirts. I do have tank tops. I have some coffee mugs, things like that. I've got hoodies. I also have links that take you to where you can get the U.S. Constitution as well. You can also reach that at constitution.americanperspective.online. Great stocking stuffer gift, I'm telling you. But I would appreciate it if you would go and check out my store. And like I said earlier, like I said earlier tonight, thank you to 3 Chevy for picking up a t-shirt. I think he picked up a black t-shirt, if I recall correctly. But go and check it out at store.americanperspective.online. And for those of you who are a long-time Whiskey Warrior P1, there is still a link that is that will take you to the old Whiskey Musing store. I haven't checked that out for sure yet, but anyway, we will. I haven't looked to see if that's still active. I'm going to have to take a closer look, but you can check that out too, as well. So, all right. So this next story is on it's basically a story, or this next case, I should say, is basically a case about self-defense and about people getting involved with protection of others when the police are refusing to, basically refusing to get involved with something that is going on. Remember, police, by their very nature, are reactionary. Police have been consistently, throughout the court system, been basically told that they cannot or they don't necessarily have to. There's no like specific requirement for them to give their life in defense of yours. This has been confirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court, which is part of the reason why one of the things that I do is I advocate on this program that you yourself need to be ready and prepared to defend yourself, because if you don't, you're going to end up being a statistic, and those police are going to come over, and basically clean up the crime scene. I mean, that's very poorly put, but that's basically the situation. All right. So, all of that being said, this comes to a head in the specific case of Daniel Penny. Now, for those that don't recall, Daniel Penny is a former Marine who was riding on a New York City subway when a known troublemaker, he's been arrested. This gentleman was arrested 42 separate times and released for assaulting people, causing public disturbances, drug offenses, things of all of this nature. He was very well known to the police. And he gets onto the subway and starts yelling at other people, and so on and so forth. Okay, but he starts yelling at people and threatening them, acting aggressively. And what ended up happening is Daniel Perry, along with a couple of other bystanders, decided that enough was enough. And he got this gentleman, I'm not going to use his name, but he got this gentleman into what is commonly considered as, and colloquially called as, a sleeper hold. What it's designed to do when done properly is it shuts off the blood to the brain such that the person loses consciousness. And unfortunately, in this particular case, and I'll get to some more specifics here in a minute, but unfortunately in this particular case, the individual died. Now, he did not die from the chokehold, okay? He did not die from the sleeper hold. That's part of the testimony that has gone on over the last week or so. Okay. Here in the Daily Wire, this is a bit of a surprise, but Democrat New York City Mayor Eric Adams strongly defends Daniel Perry and blasts the media. And he basically said that you have someone on that subway who was responding, doing what we should have done. Now, this is the thing. He defended the 26-year-old former U.S. Marine who's been charged in the death of the man. I'm not going to give his name. Penny restrained him. Again, he was a troubled man with a lengthy criminal record, history of mental health issues, after the man allegedly threatened passengers on the subway last year. Now, some of those subway passengers testified on Perry's behalf, by the way, or sorry, Penny's behalf. And so now the court case has moved into what is known as the jury phase, where the jury will go off and deliberate and figure out whether or not this is going to be, what Penny's resulting charges are going to end up being. So Adams said in his statement that we are now on the subway where we hear someone talking about hurting people, killing people. You have someone, referring to Penny, on that subway who was responding, doing what we should have done as a city. Adams emphasized in his statement that those passengers were afraid. The mayor also referenced the mental health crisis in New York City. He said, then you look at the complete failure of our mental health system, a complete failure from the days of closing psychiatric wards and having those who needed help just turned over into the street without giving any safety net to accept them. In 2022, Adams, of course, faced criticism from the far left when he announced a plan to hospitalize some severely mentally ill people involuntarily, noting that it's the city's moral obligation to act. Now, here's the thing. A lot of this stuff, and I'm telling you right now, that a lot of this stuff, along with the increase of school shootings, people talk about the school shootings and everything else. A lot of this stuff can be traced back to when they closed down the public psychiatric facilities. Unfortunately, when Congress, under the Reagan administration, but when the Congress decided to go and remove public funding for the psychiatric care, the mental health care, is not necessarily a causation, but definitely a correlated part of the increase in not only crime, but drug use, mental health issues, and the increase of school shootings. And so all of this stuff, it can be relatively connected to that, because let's face it, even in like regular gun crimes, it's not the gun that kills anybody. It's the person wielding the gun. And I'm getting a little tired of everybody sitting here trying to blame an inanimate object. Okay. I also know that there have been a lot of people on the left who basically say, well, take a look at Japan, for an example. Japan doesn't have any guns. And they correlate the fact that Japan doesn't have any guns to the fact that, Japan doesn't have all of this, school shootings and crime. Well, I hate to point this out to you folks, but Japan is also the highest rate of institutionalization of mental health individuals in the world. Okay? U.S. doesn't even rank close to that. And I'm telling you that a lot of the things that we are dealing with today in terms of criminality, it all has to come down to a mental health issue, because what would be considered as a normal individual would not have the desire nor the will to kill another person indiscriminately. There is a problem in our society today. And unfortunately, when somebody who is a hero who steps up to fight the evil that is out there, they get raked over the coals. And this is exactly what's happening here. So Adams continued on with his statement, and he says, look at the photo that they used to show the victim. It seemed like it was a young, innocent child who was brutally murdered, and it gave the impression, and he's talking about the press, by the way, because he's accusing the media for downplaying the person's alleged threatening behavior, okay? He continues here, that it gave the impression when you look at the photo that was being used, it wanted to set up in the minds of people that were dealing with a young, innocent child that was, just a Michael Jackson impersonator. You remember when they did that with George Floyd? George Floyd, too, was the idea that he held a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, okay? That little tidbit during his trial and during the media coverage was completely glossed over. The fact that the man took enough fentanyl to kill an elephant was also glossed over in the media. The problem that we have here, folks, is not the fact that crime is bad. Crime is bad. But the problem that we have is that the news media is not, is sensationalizing these crimes, is sensationalizing these incidents. And let me just say this, that if Daniel Penny had been a different ethnic background and his alleged victim been a different ethnic background, do you think that we would be hearing or seeing any of this today? It really wouldn't matter. Because Penny, who's a white guy, stepped in and did what he did to a black man, that automatically presents itself as this to the media. This is a story that we need to run with. So down here a little bit further in the piece, it was found that Neely had K2, which by the way is like some sort of, what do they call it? Manufactured marijuana. It's a synthetic drug, sometimes called spice, which by the way has been linked to psychosis, but he also had other drugs in his system. Okay. So here we are. We have a gentleman who has a criminal record, a history of mental health issues. According to several of the witnesses on the stand, that he threatened many of the subway train passengers and made it clear that he was willing to go to die or go to prison for life if necessary. And he was on drugs at the time of his death. Multiple drugs. So Penny has been charged with second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide in the man's death and could face up to 15 years behind bars. Jury deliberations started in this case. Folks, when you have a phrase like this, when seconds count, police are minutes away, all right? That saying is so true. And this is part of the reason why we need to be able to look at people like this who step in when the police are nowhere to be found, especially in these times where you have defunding the police and limited numbers of police. And in fact, even to the point where the police are being victimized and vindicated in the mainstream media and everything else, where they're not even willing to do their job for fear of getting reprisals, legal reprisals for all of this. I mean, Derek Chauvin, honestly, was, in my view, was a patsy. There is clear evidence in the video, his body cam video of George Floyd having 3 tablets of fentanyl on his tongue right before he starts complaining about not being able to breathe, when he wasn't even on the ground. We're talking like in the back of the police car with cuffs on. The idea of self-defense becoming a crime has got to disappear in our country. You have the basic right to self-defense. You have the right to defend yourself. And yet the court system, being bastardized by the Democrat leftist morons that we have running around, they all believe, or they all start to believe and push for the idea that the victim is the perpetrator and the perpetrator is the victim. And speaking of victims and perpetrators, okay, we have, gosh, that's good. Whew. I like that 4 roses. We have the victim being Donald Trump, the perpetrator being Fani Willis. Yes, Fani Willis is back in the news. Oh, little Miss Fannie Willis, Fonnie, whatever her freaking, however you pronounce her freaking name. She is back in the news. You want to know why? Because of the fact that she has refused. She has refused to cooperate in some of her investigations. So here in the Daily Wire, Fannie Willis is ordered to hand over all Jack Smith J6 communications in the next 5 business days. Now, you'll recall, as a part of the investigation into Fannie Willis, all right, was that she and Nathan Wade mostly, went to the White House and spent time in D.C. prior to charging Donald Trump. And that Nathan Wade testified that he took that trip under the auspices of gathering evidence and met with Jack Smith, the J6 committee, and so on and so forth. Okay. Well, apparently a court granted a motion for a default adjustment against her on Tuesday, and she has now been ordered to hand over all records related to her communications with Special Counsel Jack Smith and the House January 6th committee. She is leading the controversial RICO case against President-elect Donald Trump, which, by the way, we're still kind of waiting for that to come on. But anyway, the Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney is giving Willis 5 business days to produce that material. Fox News reported this on Tuesday night. McBurney also said in his ruling that Willis violated Georgia's Open Records Act. Okay. When she failed to respond to the nonprofit Judicial Watch's lawsuit about the communication. So Willis's office claimed in March that it did not have any documents on file or communications with Smith or the January 6th committee. However, the claim was untrue, and the office did have such communication. Daily Wire reporter Luke Rosiak in October revealed that Nathan Wade, quick reminder, Willis's romantic partner whom she hired as the special prosecutor in the Trump case, had extensive communications with the Biden White House, according to records. Wade billed the Fulton County office for hours of meetings with the White House, the Congressional January 6th Committee, and other D.C. officials, according to records obtained by the House Judiciary Committee. On November 18th of 2022, he billed 8 hours for interviews with D.C. and White House, but under oath, he claimed that he didn't remember the meetings and couldn't even say whether it was online or in person. Between September 7th and September 9th of that same year, Wade billed $6,000 to taxpayers for, quote, witness interviews, conference call with D.C., team meeting, but couldn't remember what the D.C. meeting entailed. Yeah, this thing needs to just go away. I'm just telling you right now. This is just ridiculous. But anyway. So, yeah. A released transcript of an interview with Wade, which was compelled by subpoena, showed that Willis was preparing to prosecute Trump even before she took office. She put Wade on a, quote, search committee to find a prosecutor when she ultimately then chose him for the job. In addition to the accusation that her office was allegedly working with the White House and the Democrats, Willis has been marred by the hiring of Wade, who was her boyfriend. And since the pair allegedly benefited financially from the arrangement, currently that's being worked through the courts, which you'll recall I mentioned not too long ago that the Georgia state court that was going to hear that has taken that off their docket in terms of calendar docket. So anyway, Wade, of course, was forced to resign thanks to McAfee saying, one of the two of you need to go. But anyway, so yeah, This is just another one of those lawfare things that needs to go away. It needs to go away. Well, as if we did not already know this. You know, sometimes I swear, sometimes I feel like, Dan Bongino talks about if you watch his show, you're like 6 months ahead of the news cycle. And while I'm not necessarily following Dan Bongino all the time in terms of following him in terms of the news, okay, I am telling you, though, that there are some things that you'll hear on this program that is ahead of the power curve. That's part of my job. It's part of the reason why I do this show. It's part of the reason why you come to watch and listen and hopefully learn in some cases. But here in the Daily Fetched, Meta finally admits to censoring conservatives after Zuckerberg met with Trump. Yeah. Just over a week after Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg met with President-elect Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, a Facebook senior executive openly admitted that the platform excessively censored conservative voices. Yeah. You know, that whole Missouri and Louisiana case, that's still ongoing. I wonder if they're going to use this as potential evidence to show that the White House conspired to usurp the First Amendment with all of this. So former British Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, who serves as Meta's president for global affairs, acknowledged that the company's errors in content moderation, and he also admitted the current system destroys free speech while emphasizing the need for enhanced precision and accuracy for future moderation. During a press briefing, Clegg said that it was regretful that the company rigorously removed COVID-19 pandemic-related posts and censored important information from the public. Yeah. Clegg said, quote, "We know that when enforcing our policies, our error rates are still too high, which gets in the way of free expression that we set out to enable. Too often, harmless content gets taken down or restricted, and too many people get penalized unfairly." Now, I'm going to tell you, I get hit more often than not with bullshit, and I am saying bullshit claims that the music that I use on this program is copyrighted by somebody else. Folks, if you want to know where my music comes from, my leader music, my trailer music, it's all in the description of the video. Shows up every single video. It's down at the bottom. It tells you exactly where I got it from. It tells you that we're under the Creative Commons licensing. And I just went through a slew of these things where they were claims by Sony and a couple other smaller producing companies or publishing companies that are all claiming the same thing. And I immediately respond back to them and say, hey, here it is. It's right here. I don't use, generally speaking. Now, honestly, I mean, there have been a few times that I have grabbed things from other sources, like I have had on some of my specials, history. In particular, I played a video at one of my, I don't remember if it was my 4th of July special, my Memorial Day special, my Veterans Day special, whatever it was, where I played some history, some videos from history, and they claimed it as theirs. Now, they didn't stop the video necessarily, but they did put on a monetary sharing restriction. And I accept those. I don't fight those. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that for one of my normal videos, okay, that one of my normal videos has a song in it that isn't even, I mean, they were like claiming that these songs were not even the songs that I use, the song titles or the artists. Yeah, I'm going to fight that. I'm going to fight those. So anyway, while he argued that Facebook's decisions during the pandemic were driven by uncertainty, he said that in hindsight, such measures were overly strict. Okay, now notice he's specifically talking about COVID. I know of another incident that happened right in front of the election of 2020 in October, a true story that was censored by Facebook, by what was Twitter, now is X, thanks to Elon Musk buying it. And so, yeah, what ended up happening is it all got taken down because they claimed it was misinformation. That, by the way, too, if you recall, Zuckerberg himself said, oh, yeah, we received a message from the FBI that said that Russian disinformation was coming, but there weren't any specifics about it. Yeah. Yeah. Folks, the easiest way, and by the way, this is Section 230 of the Telecommunications Act. The easiest way to avoid all this is just say, look, if it doesn't break the law, we're not going to stop it. That's your answer. Rumble has the best free speech platform, and X is slowly, if it hasn't already gotten there, it's pretty damn close to it under Elon Musk's control, has gotten there too. Those two platforms are, without a doubt, the most forgiving platforms when it comes to things like censoring conservative voices. Hell, Rumble doesn't care whether you're a conservative or a liberal. You can put whatever the hell you want on Rumble, as long as it doesn't break the law, nor show a bunch of nudity and porn. They're not going to stop you. It's part of the reason why I like Rumble. Rumble is the free speech platform alternative to YouTube, otherwise known as ScrewTube, owned by the Alphabet Company, otherwise known as Google. That's why we like those. That's why we like the outlets. If it is misinformation, folks, it's going to get outed. I guarantee you that. The light of truth shining on the lies will cause them to disappear. Okay? So, there you go. Anyway, yeah, we already know that, for an example, Google in its search terms censored political speech like the Republicans. They ranked the Republicans further down in their search engine results and things of that nature. Well, I got to tell you, there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new sheriff in town at what is known as the Federal Communications Commission. His name is Brendan Carr. And he is Trump's nominee to run the FCC. Now, this guy, this FCC pick, well, let's just put it this way. Almost every single one of Trump's picks have all been, shall we say, controversial at best with the left. Outright scares the left in some cases, like Pete Hegseth, like Kash Patel, like Matt Gaetz did at one point. But here in the Hill, Trump's FCC chair pick talks how to smash the censorship cartel. So he said that he wants to stop what he calls the censorship cartel. He's identified 3 primary actions in this alleged censorship effort. So Carr was on an interview with News Nation's Cuomo, and outlined a multi-pronged approach to addressing what he sees as growing restrictions on freedom of expression he believes was accelerated during COVID-19. Carr said, the diversity of opinion is so important to this country, it's going to be one of my top priorities, trying to smash this censorship cartel. The FCC is an independent agency that is overseen by Congress, but Trump has suggested that he wanted to bring it under tighter White House control. in part to use the agency to punish TV networks that cover, now keep in mind, this is the Hill, that cover him in a way he doesn't like. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's believe me, that isn't the case. Carr, who has been an FCC commissioner since 2017, could try to usher in what the Hill calls a drastic change to the agency when it comes to tech and broadcast companies' freedoms. So in a statement released after Trump won the election, Carr said the FCC will have an important role to play reining in big tech, ensuring that broadcasters operate in the public interest and unleashing economic growth. Okay, so what did Carr say that he's going to do? First of all, Carr specifically criticized the current interpretation of Section 230 of the Communications Act. Remember that, I reference it. Which provides legal protections for online platforms. That's the key, platform versus publisher, all right? If you have companies that get together that decide not to compete on a feature of business, including content moderation, that's possibly a problem under our competition laws. He also stated that anytime you have an increase in government control, you necessarily have a decrease in free speech. It's fundamentally un-American. So, first of all, he suggested that the FCC could play a crucial role in promoting diverse viewpoints by re-examining how 230 is implemented. He said, I think we should try and protect core political speech, religious speech, scientific speech. He's also highlighted broader media trust issues, noting that traditional media's credibility has declined to the point where it now ranks lower in the public trust than Congress. Now, for those of you that have a longer memory than just yesterday, Obama was the one that relinquished the control of the media companies to allow them to essentially not to be able to promote propaganda. Okay, so anyway, he continued on here, and he indicated that the FCC under his leadership would focus on economic initiatives, including spectrum allocation and supporting the space economy, echoing policies from the Trump administration as well. He also pointed out that broadcasters have a legal obligation to serve. Oh, I already said that. But anyway. So, yeah. So this guy sounds like he might have a bit of a handle on what is going on with the censorship across the board. So that's cool. And he sounds like he's doing a going to do a very, very good job. While also at the same time, I didn't include this in the show notes, but at the same time, Trump has announced some new nominations. The first one on the docket, which I'm kind of disappointed in. I personally would have thought that Sean Parnell would have been a really good pick for the Secretary of the Army. Sean, if you're watching, I still hold that to be true. By the way, if any of you have not read Sean Parnell's Outlaw Platoon, it is a fantastic read. It was so engaging. I finished it in, I believe, 2 days. So, and it's not that hard to read either. It's stories of his time in Afghanistan as a part of his commanding his platoon over there. So, anyway, the person who's been chosen, though, is Daniel Driscoll of North Carolina. He's been tapped by Trump to serve as the next Secretary of the Army. He's a venture capitalist. He's an Army veteran. He served in the 10th Mountain Division, so he probably knows Sean Parnell or knows of Sean Parnell. Or maybe Sean knows, well, Sean claims that he doesn't know him, but he was part of the 10th Mountaineering and was deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom. So he might have been ahead of Sean in terms of that. He's also served as a senior advisor to Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, which is cool. And Trump has also appointed Peter Navarro to be his top trade advisor. Now, if you recall, he was jailed by the DOJ for refusing to betray Trump. So, yeah, the January 6th committee demanded that he betrayed, meaning Navarro, betrayed Donald Trump to save my own skin. Navarro refused. Well, now he's being rewarded. He's returning to the Trump administration, who is going to take his old position of trade advisor. Also, too, a gentleman by the name of Adam Seth Bowler will serve as special presidential envoy for hostage affairs. I wonder why that's key here. But he is the selection to serve in that position. It was created in 2015 under Barack Obama. Bowler was the lead negotiator for Trump during the Abraham Accords. Hint, hint. The historic peace treaty signed during the first Trump administration between Israel, UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. So he's bringing him back. And rounding out this batch of nominations is Jared Isaacman, who is a billionaire philanthropist and associate of Elon Musk's. Trump has selected Isaacman to head the NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Isaacman is a private astronaut and piloted the SpaceX Polaris mission, the first private sector manned space flight. So he is now going to go and work with NASA. So there we are. Oh, yes. Yeah, 3 Chevy points out, our negotiations on hostages, there will be hell to pay. Yeah, he did. Trump did call that out. And as you recall, too, there's that story of where Trump walked into the Taliban leader and basically showed him a picture of his house and said, if you kill another American soldier, yeah, that's gone. Scared the shit out of the guy. And of course, we spent several years without any American soldiers being lost in Iraq or Afghanistan after that. That's what it takes, is a leader with balls. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and cover tonight's pet of the week. All right, tonight's pet of the week is a quick last-minute submission. Because, well, you know, you guys have got to get these in. You really do. You got to get these in. But, hey, Buddy Weiser for the win sent me a picture of this spectacular, military-oriented pup. I got to tell you, this guy is a bit scary. Well, not scary for us, scary for our enemies. Let me go ahead and bring him on. I got to get, wait, is it going to come up? Oh, yes. There he is. There's our military pup. Let's call him Sergeant Slaughter. How about that? Oh, there's Mrs. Whiskey. She's saying hi. Let's call him Sergeant Slaughter. And boy, he looks ready and prepared, ready to go. It looks like he's got his hat and he's got a cap on. He's got goggles ready to do the jump out of it. Yeah, this is what we got here. Sergeant Slaughter. It looks like he's all muscled up too. Look at the way that he's sitting there. He's just like, and he's got his own, camo on his face already with it. Yeah. So just take a look at him. And by the way, yes, Tommy, it looks like it's AI. Now that I take a look at it, it's AI. But he's carrying his own, what appears to be some sort of weapon on his side there, maybe a rifle or something along those lines. But anyway, very attentive pup. I got to tell you, have you ever seen these guys? I mean, seriously, just all joking aside, have you ever seen any of these military dogs work? I mean, they jump out of freaking airplanes. They have literally no fear at all. It's like I don't know. They sometimes they seem like they enjoy it. And I'm telling you, I have actually seen like videos of the like protection dogs and military dogs by this guy. I can't remember. I think he's in Eastern Europe somewhere. and he works with Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds. And there's one in particular, one video that I saw, the guy, he sends the dog takes off like as fast as he can run. Might be a she, I don't know, but as fast as the dog can run. And then he yells a command and the dog hits the ground and slides across the grass because he was traveling so quickly before he got the command to like lay down. It's just fantastic. And he's got videos of these dogs that are like walking in between his legs, paying attention to the opponent that's in front of him, so on and so forth. It's just military dogs. I'm telling you, they are fantastic. They are just as much as courageous as the rest of our military. And it's fantastic. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. If you get the opportunity to like donate to any of the organizations that help rehome these dogs after they have been released from their military service, you might want to think about it. I mean, just as much as our veterans need the money, these four-legged veterans, they need it too. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It's free. And once you are there and signed in, search up the American Perspective channel, and you can hit that green follow button so that you can get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up buttons and those like buttons on all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, or Rumble, of course, on your way out, so that you can help elevate these videos and, of course, gain me some more exposure. I'd love to expand my my audience. I'd love to expand to all of you guys. Let's get more of these people. Also, too, you can join the Rumble Rabble, according to Jarhead 13, over on Rumble. We'll see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.